Just Saturday sit down. It's right at midnight. So I'm gonna post this tomorrow on Saturday, but right now it's Friday still for 3 more minutes. These are the about 12 questions I got over the last week. Just want to cover real quick so that y'all can watch this. It'll be on my playlist under YouTube, and it'll be under the playlist Saturday sit down. So somebody asked, should a buyer rep ever be signed after a contract offer? Again, there's buyers that are all different. So some buyers might ask for you to wait until they make an offer to see how the negotiation goes. It's not what we recommend, but it's America. And, you always have the right to say no to the buyer and possibly lose them. Or you can say, hey, it's our office policy that we get the buyer rep sign when we write up an offer. But at the same time, you could also wait until after the offer is accepted and get the buyer rep sign. I mean, obviously the policy of our company is to get a buyer rep sign before you write an offer up. That protects you on getting paid a commission. So, you've just got to find out the temperature of the buyer, and hopefully they're comfortable with you, and they're going to sign it beforehand. Okay. Somebody had asked over the last 7 days about a backup offer. A backup offer just makes the first one stronger. I'm not a big believer in backups. It's not in this market because there's no homes on the market. Every listing agent's going to want a backup, and then as soon as they get you to do it, it's going to get executed. Your buyer's going to have to deliver earnest and option in 3 days. There'll be an effective date of the backup, and there'll be a new effective date if the first contract falls out. As soon as they get the backup executed, they're going to tell the first contract that they have a backup, and it's going to make the first one want the home even more. So just remember that. It's like going shopping and you like a dress, but you don't know for sure if you like it. Right as you put it back on the rack, you see somebody eyeball it, you go ahead and throw it over your shoulder and you walk around for an hour with no intention of really buying it. It's just the fact that somebody else wanted it, made you want it more. So I'm not a big fan of backups, but it's America again. Just know that you got to write the 2 checks and deliver them. It'll be a backup. There's no way they get their option back if it doesn't go into a number 1 contract. They will always lose their option, always, unless they go to closing on any property. Somebody asked about when you get a Realtor.com lead through OpCity, or if you're buying Zillow leads, when Realtor.com, OpCity, or Zillow say, oh, Susie's on the other line and she doesn't have a realtor, you still need to vet that buyer, because who knows how well they asked that buyer if they had a realtor. So I always like to say something like, hey, give me your realtor's name so I can protect them in case you like the house tonight. I want to make sure I don't take a commission from your agent. Or, oh, is your realtor out of town? Almost like an assumptive. You're trying to find out whether they have a realtor so you don't waste your time going to show them. If they say they have a realtor, again, I just let it go and say, well, you need to reach out to them and let them show you the property. I know other agents that say, well, did you sign anything with them? And inquire a little more. Again, it's America. Y'all decide how y'all want to work that with your buyers. Just closed properties that are in a subdivision. You can always inquire to the listing agent if it just closed and ask them, hey, it hasn't been changed in the computer yet from active option or pending to close. A lot of realtors don't like you inquiring like that. They might not tell you. So just, you got to do it with kid gloves. And that means that, you got to have some soft skills when you call a listing agent and they have a listing in a subdivision that's funded, but you don't know it's funded. Make sure you know it's funded before you call them and ask them for what it's closed for. Nobody wants to tell you what a home is under contract for in case it falls out. You'd always know what that contract price was. So that's always going to be protected. What is the ABB? I've heard this a number of times. That's agreement between brokers regarding residential leases. We need 2 things on most leases: a W-9, that's in back agent, under office documents, quick links. It's the very first thing. Office documents, quick links. You're going to see the W-9 for DHS Realty. You can send and share it. I would say share it to yourself and keep it on your phone. The other thing is the agreement between brokers regarding residential leases. When you log into Zip Forms, you hit the new tab. When you hit the new tab, you have 5 boxes. You'll pick the 3rd box for lease. You'll name it. Then you'll select the dot next to residential. There's a drop down a little further down. You'll pick lease template or tenant template. You'll hit save. You'll be at a screen that says a white summary square. You'll go 2 tabs to the right to documents, and you'll see a form that says agreement between brokers regarding residential leases. If you hover over each form, it'll eventually tell you what that form title is, and that form will need to be filled out. I template 50% of the first month's rent. So if it's less than that or more, you'll need to change that 50 to whatever is appropriate for that specific listing. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Somebody asked me about a tax roll, whether they should provide the tax roll to an appraiser coming out to appraise a house. The tax roll has nothing to do with the value of the home, and an appraiser will always pull up the tax roll. So no, you don't need to do that. That's going to be not the smartest move, because the appraiser is not going to know what you're really doing. So what you could do is a CMA. You could pull up some comps. You could possibly email them or put them in the kitchen. You can meet them at the house and say, hey, here are some comps. But don't worry about the tax roll. That has no bearing on the value of the home. That's just an assessment done by an assessor. Okay. The option, if you don't have an option, you're still entitled to an inspection. That's in paragraph 7A. So we've got to read our contracts. I'd read paragraph 7 next time you get a break. 7A says that the buyer has a right to get a home inspection by a TREC licensed inspector or somebody otherwise permitted by law within reasonable hours. That's with or without an option, because these contracts aren't even option contracts. They're as is. There's no repairs on these contracts. You can negotiate repairs with an option, but these are as is. So just remember that whether you have an option or not, you have a right to get the home inspected. These are as is contracts. So, let's know what we have here. Can you make 2 offers at the same time? Well, when you have a client, you have obedience to carry out lawful instruction. And if the client wants to make 3 offers or 4 or 5, then that's legal. Of course, they're probably going to write 5 options, and they're going to lose 4 options if all 5 offers get accepted at the same time. So as long as the buyer knows when they write an offer, if multiple offers get accepted, that they can't buy 2 homes, so they would need to terminate one of them, and they would do that with the option. So yes, you can make offers on multiple homes at the same time. Our policy on intermediary. Well, when we're in an intermediary with 2 agents or 1, I want to get 2 IBSs signed by the buyer and the seller. I want a buyer rep and a listing agreement signed with intermediary authorized, which is templated. And then I want the notice of intermediary, which is a single document that's in your transaction documents. And it'll either say will or will not. Will means 2 agents. Will not means 1 agent. And that's it. So you'll have 2 IBSs, a buyer rep and a listing agreement, and the notice of intermediary. And then you lock and load and move forward. And I can assist you on all that. Lead-based paint. Okay, lead-based paint. There's 2 lead-based paint addendums, one for a tenant landlord and one for a buyer seller. The buyer seller lead-based paint addendum gives the buyer the right to waive a lead-based paint inspection or to get one done. Now, I've only had 1 buyer ever do a lead-based paint inspection. It was in the last 30 years I've been licensed. Only 1. They worked at a lead-based paint factory. Home was in Farmers Branch, built 1940, been painted 20 times. So the lead was in there, but 20 layers back. Most buyers aren't going to get a lead-based paint inspection. Just read the lead-based paint disclosure addendum and just mark it appropriately. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. Just ask the buyer, hey, you want to get a lead-based paint inspection done? Oh, what's that? Well, it checks for lead. I mean, if the home is built after 78, you won't even use it, or 78 or on. So really, we're talking about homes before 1978, which are going to be almost 55-year-old homes. So you're not really going to use it that often. But if you do, just know that it's always a good idea to actually read the document, and that will help you answer some of your questions. So lead-based paint waiver. And then what do we do when we terminate under the option? Well, in our documents, in that same transaction, you're going to pull up the notice of buyer's termination and mark the first paragraph. If you read that, it says it's buyer's waiving the right, buyer is terminating based on their right of unrestricted right to terminate. So you'll check mark the first box on the buyer notice of termination. If it's within the 10 days, clearly, then you need that. But you got to call the title company where the transaction at and see what form they need in order to release the earnest money. All title companies are different. Some only require that notice of buyer's termination signed by the buyer, and others require that and an earnest money release form. And both of those are in your documents in the transaction that you will have created for your buyer client. So, you know, I'm not the one that'll tell you that answer. The title company, they will tell you what forms they need to release the earnest money, and that's really all you have to follow. Other than that, that pretty much sums up our Saturday sit down. And thank you, Lola, for taking over for the last 5 days while I got a little break. I'm back re-energized and focused on finishing strong the last 6 months. We'll have training every Friday at noon at Truly Title. Have a newsletter coming out. Everybody that joined in May will be paying June 1st to June 5th, hitting the PayPal link in our monthly newsletter. And we have our second annual pool party, July 23rd, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. with burgers, chicken, hot dogs, potato salad, swimming, in-ground trampoline, billiards, ping pong upstairs, little basketball game, and Atari game. So it should be a lot of fun. And then we do have our Christmas party already booked for December 2nd at Glen Eagles Country Club in Plano, about 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. All right, y'all be safe.